My name is Clara. I'm 36 years old, currently serving as Chief Strategy Officer for a financial corporation headquartered in Boston. But in my family's eyes, I've always been the failure child. Every slight, every dismissive glance carved a wound they never saw, a silent scream they ignored. Every August, they host a family reunion at the old estate in Cape Cod, the place I grew up in, the one that used to be my childhood paradise until it became a symbol of exclusion. Each summer, the house mocked me, its walls whispering my irrelevance. This year was no different. The email arrived at exactly 9:00 a.m. Monday, subject line in all caps, "Don't forget the Hare's family gathering, summer in Cape Cod." The sender, my eldest sister, Elise. The tone was cheerful, upbeat, as if the whole family was thrilled to be together. But it was a polished lie, a glittering facade to mask their cold indifference. But I knew better. I was just a name added to fill space. Why am I so sure? Because for the past 7 years, I haven't had a proper place to sleep. "Rooms are full, Clara. Maybe get a hotel nearby." That's my mother Margaret's classic line. Like clockwork, year after year, it never misses a beat. Her words were a ritual, a calculated rejection dressed in kindness. I was sitting in my 29th floor office, staring at that email, when Sophie, my assistant, walked in with 2 espressos. "Another reunion invite?" she asked, her voice sharp with knowing sympathy, eyes narrowing at my clenched fists. "Let me guess. They're already out of rooms?" I nodded, my jaw tight. "Probably. Maybe this time Elise's daughter needs more space to create art." I forced a bitter laugh, the kind that hides a decade of hurt, my heart pounding with suppressed rage. I didn't need to hear it to know what would happen next. As usual, Mom would call that evening, her voice sweet as honey but laced with conditional phrasing. "Sweet Clara, I just don't want you to be uncomfortable. The roof's under renovation. Emma needs a quiet place to paint. You understand?" Her words were a velvet dagger, slicing through my hope every time, leaving me bleeding invisibly. Every year I'd usually fake a smile and hang up. But not this year. I glanced at the letter sitting on my desk, the one appointing me as Executive Vice President for the entire Northeast region, a role I had spent over a decade working toward. Rising above fierce competition, never slowing down. They didn't know, and probably never cared. They'd rather fawn over Elise's perfect life or Nathan's reckless dreams than acknowledge my blood and sweat victories. I remember the summer I was 11, the year everything began to shift. "Clara, go do the dishes. Mom and Elise have to get the reception ready." Meanwhile, my brother Nathan was allowed to sit outside with Dad to learn how to host a party. I stood in the sweltering kitchen, soap bubbles on my hands, listening to laughter echo from the porch, my chest tight. The sound of their joy was a wall shutting me out, branding me as the outsider in my own home. From then on, my role in the family boiled down to one word: support. No one asked what I wanted. I was simply the background to their spotlight. Elise the radiant, Nathan the ambitious, and me. I was good enough not to get scolded, but not memorable enough to be seen. Invisible, always. A shadow they never noticed. My phone buzzed. A message from Mia, my best friend from high school, now a creative director at a furniture firm in Denver. "Cape Cod again? Want me to send emergency wine?" Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the edge of despair, a reminder that someone saw my pain. I replied, "Send me a one-way ticket out of this family tree instead." Then the phone lit up again, this time a call from Mom. I didn't answer, not because I didn't want to talk, but because I already knew what she'd say. A fake invitation hiding the same old trap. Her voice would drip with false warmth, a performance perfected over years, each syllable a calculated cut. I looked out the window, the city of Boston glowing in silver dusk. I had built an entire life they never bothered to ask about. But now, something felt different inside. Not pain, not resentment, just a quiet, steely thought. I was done being their afterthought, done swallowing their poison. The day I received the official letter from the board confirming I would be promoted to regional CEO for the Northeast starting September 1st, Elise posted a photo from their pre-reunion picnic. The whole family eating fruit pies by the beach. My mother commented under it, "Family is everything." I wasn't in that photo. Their smiles mocked me. A curated lie excluding me yet again, a dagger twisted in my heart. As always, I once believed that success would make them see me differently. I worked relentlessly. Graduated top of my class from Yale, earned a full scholarship for my MBA at Harvard, worked at 3 major investment firms before joining Crestview Capital, and climbed to my current role. I thought if I became good enough, they couldn't ignore me. But I was wrong. No trophy, no title could pierce their willful blindness, their refusal to see me as anything but the spare. Not long ago, at Mom's 70th birthday party held at a luxury French restaurant in New York, I flew in from Denver, where I was attending a national strategy conference. I arrived on time, wearing a tailored navy silk dress, holding a carefully wrapped cashmere scarf I'd selected in Paris. As I entered, Mom looked at me and said, "Oh, Clara, you made it. I thought you'd be too busy." Her tone was a dismissal, as if my presence was an inconvenience, a disruption to their perfect tableau. Before I could set the gift down, she turned and embraced Elise. "My darling girl, that dress matches your eye beautifully." The contrast stung like a slap, her affection a spotlight that never reached me, leaving me in the cold shadows. I stood there, surrounded by crystal glasses and chandeliers, feeling like I had just walked into a room where I was never truly invited. My heart shattered, but I hid it behind a practiced smile, as always. The tipping point came when Nathan, my brother who's gone bankrupt 3 times, chasing vague tech startups, stood up and gave a speech that had the whole family clapping wildly. "We must always believe in each other, like Mom always believed in me through all my ventures." His words were a knife, twisting in the wound of my erasure, glorifying his failures while my triumphs were ignored. Mom nodded tearfully while Dad clinked glasses with Uncle George like they'd just heard a legendary CEO speak. No one asked what I did. No one mentioned the multi-million-dollar deals I was managing. Not a single word about me, as if I didn't exist. I was a ghost in their celebration, my achievements invisible, my presence a mere formality. I sat silently, forcing down cold pasta while Mom recounted Elise's childhood fashion sense. She could color-match dresses at 5 years old. Such natural taste. I had redesigned Crestview Capital's entire office and won an award for corporate interior design. But to Mom, that wasn't worth mentioning compared to a child's pink dress. Her priorities were a slap, valuing nostalgia over my triumphs, dismissing my legacy for a fleeting memory. A few days later, I offered to help finance repairs for the Cape Cod house. The front roof had been covered in moss for over a year, and Mom coolly replied, "Oh, Elise and her husband got it. They're planning something. You're always so busy." "I didn't want to bother you." Her dismissal was a final straw, pushing me to the edge of a reckoning, a spark igniting a fire I'd suppressed for too long. I went quiet. That estate was where I learned to swim, where I read my first novels on the porch bench, where I once dreamed I'd get married someday. Now I was a stranger in my own childhood home. Mia, the only friend who'd stuck with me all these years, had once said during dinner, "You're not the failure in that family. They just can't handle the fact that the one they underestimated became the most successful." Her words were a mirror, reflecting a truth I'd been too hurt to see, a call to reclaim my worth. I smiled, but didn't argue because deep down I knew she was right. I was ready to shatter their illusions. That night I stayed up until 3 o'clock a.m. in my penthouse apartment, gazing at the glittering Boston skyline. I opened my laptop, logged into a real estate platform specializing in Massachusetts vacation homes. The beachside estate, my family's old house, had been quietly listed 3 weeks ago, and no one told me. I knew why. They didn't think I had any reason to care. Or worse, they thought I couldn't afford it. Their secrecy was a betrayal, a final act of exclusion, a slap that echoed through decades of neglect. I took a screenshot, texted Mia. It's time for the final move. Not for revenge. To reclaim what should have been mine all along. This was my stand, a declaration they'd never expect. A rebellion against their erasure. And this time, they wouldn't be able to pretend I didn't exist. 2 weeks after Mom's birthday party, I got the final reminder email about this year's family reunion. Elise again, still pretending to be all bubbly and close. Hey fam, don't forget second weekend of August. If you arrive early, help set up the BBQ tent. Her cheer was a mask, hiding the same old rejection, a cruel reminder of my place outside their circle. I scanned the attached list. Everyone had their own room. Elise and her husband in the upstairs suite. Nathan and his new girlfriend took the west wing. Even the kids had a designated area. And me? Not a word, not a mention. Just one faint note at the bottom. Clara, if attending, may want to book an Airbnb nearby. We're at full capacity. Hope that's okay. The note was a slap, their indifference written in black and white, a final nail in the coffin of my belonging. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, not angry, but sad. I expected it. But this time, instead of feeling excluded, it was like something clicked inside me. I wasn't their outcast anymore. I was their reckoning, a storm they'd never see coming. That evening, as the city went quiet, I reopened the real estate site, filtered by Cape Cod vacation homes. The estate appeared at the top, its facade fading, roof tiles stained, note saying, needs renovation, price reduced 20% from last year. I clicked transaction history. The home had been refinanced 2 years ago, the loan balance was barely touched. That's why they were desperate to sell. My family, always boasting about tradition and family values, was trying to preserve appearances by hosting a reunion in a house about to be foreclosed. Their hypocrisy was a fire, fueling my resolve, exposing their hollow pride. I sighed. As a child, that house had felt like my only safe place. But with every year, every dinner I was excluded from, every folding chair I was pushed into, every photo I was left out of, that home became a symbol of denial. Now, I could turn it into proof that I was never the one left behind. I called Rachel, my attorney and financial advisor, first thing the next morning. You want to buy it? Rachel asked, surprised. Under your real name? I smiled. No, use the holding company we set up last year. Clara doesn't need to show up anyway. Sneaky and brilliant, she said, her voice gleaming with approval. They'll be blindsided, Clara. This is a masterstroke. I'm not doing it to hurt them, I said, my voice steady but fierce. I'm doing it to prove I was never invisible. Nicely done, she laughed. I'll start the process. Don't tell anyone in the family. I've never told them anything, not even when I made Forbes, I said, no reason to start now. Within 3 weeks, everything went smoothly. The seller, a bank rep, didn't ask questions as long as the money came fast. I signed the contract from my Boston office, my coffee still hot on the table. As the pen lifted from the final page, Rachel looked at me. You're now the legal owner of the Harris estate in Cape Cod. Congratulations. Her words were a victory, a crown I'd earned in silence, a key to my stolen legacy. I gripped the new key in my hand, small, cold, sharp, but to me, it represented everything I had earned, not revenge. Restoration. This was my throne, and I'd claim it with unshakable resolve. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mia, not Sophie, not even Lucas, my closest colleague. I simply scheduled a 3-day getaway to coincide with the reunion weekend. I arrived in Cape Cod on Thursday morning, 3 days early. In the passenger seat was my Hermes bag and a thick portfolio stamped with the Carver Corporation logo. The fintech company I had just finalized a merger with a few hours prior, the Carver Crestview deal worth over $400 million, 0 cents, had wrapped up quietly, but sent shockwaves through the investment world. And I, the lead on strategy and negotiations, not only delivered, but had been nominated for international vice president. A new executive position in Hong Kong awaited me once the merger was formally announced next month. My triumph was a secret I held close, a weapon forged in silence, ready to unveil at the perfect moment. I never told my family about it. They never cared. To them, I've always been Clara, the quiet one, the distant one, the one who always skips reunions. I used to think becoming chief strategy officer was the peak, but this was the turning point. The offer letter from the board arrived by email. The subject line simply read, "Congratulations, you've earned this." And for the first time in years, I cried. Not because of the title, not because of the bonus, but because I finally felt seen, acknowledged. The world saw me, even if my family refused to. That afternoon, as I sat on the balcony of the estate that now legally belonged to me, the ocean breeze carrying the salt of old memories, Mia called. She was in Denver, having just wrapped her fall furniture collection launch. I just read the financial report. You actually did it. Yeah, I replied calmly. They picked me. Clara, you're not hearing me, she said, her voice electric with excitement, almost shouting. Your front page news. Wall Street Review, Forbes, Bloomberg, your face is plastered across every finance feed. You're a damn legend. And my family hasn't noticed? I said, my voice laced with dark amusement, a bitter edge I couldn't hide. I smiled faintly, still gazing at the sunset. I know, but my family probably hasn't seen it. Trust me, Elise is probably fuming somewhere, trying to figure out why Clara Harris is now the youngest female executive ever promoted at Crestview. She's probably telling everyone it's a typo, I said, my voice dry with dark humor, my heart racing at the thought of their shock. Elise will say it's just someone with the same name, I said dryly. And Nathan probably thinks it's a hoax. Are they there yet? I glanced at the clock. Tomorrow morning. And I'll be here to welcome them. Record it, Clara, Mia urged, her voice fierce. Let them choke on their own shock. They don't deserve your mercy. Don't forget to film their reactions. You deserve every second of this. I closed the call, strangely calm. I used to dream of their approval. Every holiday, every card I sent, I hoped someone in the family would call and say, "We're proud of you." But now, with the truth in print, I didn't need that anymore. Their validation was a cage I'd finally escaped, and I was free to soar. The next morning, the national financial broadcast at 8:00 a.m. featured nearly 2 minutes on the Crestview Carver deal. Footage of me in a deep navy suit shaking hands with the Carver CEO appeared on screen with the caption, "Clara Harris, the woman behind the billion-dollar deal that shifted the market." The world was shouting my name while my family remained deaf, their ignorance a final insult. And then my phone blew up. The first message was from Mom. "Sweetheart, was that you? I just saw the news." I didn't reply. Next came Elise. The media always loves to exaggerate, but congrats if it's true. Her condescension was a spark, igniting my resolve, a reminder of her smug superiority. I silently locked the screen. Then, Nathan, need a startup advisor? I've got some ideas. Maybe we can collaborate. His opportunism was laughable, a desperate grab at my success, a pathetic attempt to leech off my glory. I laughed, not bitterly, just amused. They ignored me my whole life, and now one financial segment had them scrambling back. No apologies, no acknowledgement of the past, just opportunistic hope. They thought they could ride my coattails. But I was done being their stepping stone, their forgotten pawn. I looked around the house. The walls were still the same color, but I had a design team scheduled for next week. From now on, this wouldn't be a house of quiet memories. It would be a monument to the quiet strength they always overlooked. This was my legacy, built on my terms, a fortress of my making. I stood up, stepped into the living room, and pulled out the travel dossier R had sent that morning. Inside was the relocation plan to Hong Kong. The penthouse in Victoria Harbor was waiting for my tour, and a new team was waiting for my leadership. But first, I had unfinished business. My family would arrive the next morning, still thinking they were walking into their house like every year before. They had no idea, and I would be the one to show them, not with words but with a truth they couldn't ignore. This was my moment, my battlefield, and I'd make them face the empire I'd built. The crunch of tires on gravel echoed through the front gate as I poured coffee in the same kitchen that had once held my childhood breakfasts. Through the window, I saw Mom's familiar SUV pull up, followed by Elise's car and then Nathan's. They stepped out, chatting and laughing like nothing had changed, like this was still their home. Their ignorance was a stage, and I was about to rewrite the script with a vengeance. I set my mug down, walked slowly into the living room, heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor. "The door's not opening," Mom's voice called out from outside, puzzled. "Elise, Do you have your key? Of course, Mom, Elise said, inserting the key. Click, click. Nothing. Nathan tried next. Still no luck. I opened the door from the inside, hand firm on the knob, and pulled it open gently. The three of them turned, stunned, like I'd just stepped out of the wrong universe. Clara! Mom squinted. What the hell are you doing here? Elise snapped, her voice sharp with suspicion, her eyes blazing with entitled fury. Ugh, this isn't your stage anymore, Elise, I said, my voice calm but lethal, a blade hidden in silk. What? What are you doing here? I tilted my head slightly, smiling. Welcome to the Cape Cod estate. Please come in. My calm was a weapon, unnerving them more than any shout, a quiet storm they couldn't escape. I stepped aside, my voice soft as sea breeze but sharp as steel. Elise stepped forward, eyes wary. Wait a second. Mom tried the key twice, and it didn't work. How did you get in? Who gave you a key? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked into the living room where I had laid out a large folder bearing the Seaside Hotel logo, a 5-star resort just 10 minutes away. On top were labeled envelopes for each family member, each containing a golden room keycard. There is something you should probably know. I turned to face Mom directly. This house no longer belongs to the family. Momadere thickened, their shock a palpable force, their world crumbling under my gaze. I spoke clearly. I bought the estate over a month ago under my private holding company. From now on, anything that happens in this house, including reunions, requires permission from the legal owner. I swept my gaze over each of them, still wearing the polite smile sharper than any insult. This was my coronation, and they were my unwilling witnesses. Nathan was the first to react. Hold on. You're saying you bought this place with what? Your salary? His disbelief was a challenge, one I was ready to crush, his voice dripping with the same arrogance that had dismissed me for years. No, with equity and executive right from the merger I just led, valued at over $400 million, 0 cents. I opened my iPad, pulled up the news story showing shaking hands with Carver's CEO. If you followed news instead of chasing altcoins, maybe you'd know. Elise stepped back slightly. Clara, why didn't you tell anyone? Why do it this way? Her voice trembled, a mix of anger and fear. She knew she'd lost control, her throne toppled by the sister she'd ignored. I raised my chin. Because no one's ever asked. When's the last time any of you checked in on how I was really doing? I remember. It was Mom's birthday 2 years ago. I stood at the party table and she asked me to step aside so she could take a family photo. I wasn't in it. Mom slumped into a chair like someone had pulled the floor from under her. So, what now? Are we still having the reunion here? Her voice cracked, a rare glimpse of vulnerability, her carefully crafted facade shattering. I shook my head and slid the hotel folder toward them. I've reserved the entire top floor of the Seaside Hotel for the family. Private rooms, a kids zone, BQ terrace, even a gallery space if you want to hang those old photos. Nathan opened his envelope, seeing the room key and a calligraphy-style invitation. He swallowed hard. So, what about you? Elise asked. Aren't you coming? Her question was a plea, a desperate grasp at the control she'd lost. I'll be staying here. I have work, and I'm preparing for my relocation. Relocation to where? Mom asked weakly. Hong Kong, international vice president. I'll be leading the entire Asian market starting next quarter. Took a sip of coffee. Don't worry. I'll still send pictures like you used to send those reunion photos I was never invited to. No one spoke for several long seconds. Finally, Mom stood, hand fumbling around the keycard. I'm sorry. Her apology was a whisper, too late but heavy with regret, a crack in her armor. I didn't reply, just nodded slightly. Clara, Elise said quietly. Whatever else, you did it. You made it. You surpassed all of us. I shrugged. I don't need to be better than anyone. I just wanted to be treated like part of the family. Something no one's done for the past 20 years. A truth they could no longer dodge. I walked them to the door without bitterness. They left quietly, stepping into their cars and driving away from the house they once believed was theirs. They left defeated, and I stood taller than ever. I closed the door behind them, the sound of the lock sliding into place sharp and final. There was no satisfaction in me, just a stillness, the kind that comes when you're the last one still standing after everything. I'd won, but the victory was hollow without healing, a crown heavy with the weight of lost years. The next afternoon, with sunlight slanting across the porch, Mom stood at the door of the estate again. This time, she didn't bring luggage or an old key, just a small wooden box held tightly in her hands, her eyes sunken from sleeplessness and a regret too deep to name. I opened the door and looked at her in silence. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said in a hoarse voice. "I think you should keep." She handed me the box. It's a worn oak case, its corners rounded with age but carefully wiped clean. I lifted the lid. Inside were yellowed newspaper clippings with headlines I recognized immediately. "Young executive leads record-breaking investment deal." "The woman behind Crestview's rise." "Top under 35. Alongside were my college transcripts, my MBA graduation invite, a copy of my award-winning thesis. "I thought you didn't care," I whispered. My voice trembled, betraying the pain I'd buried for years, a wound reopening in the face of her secret pride. I thought so too," she replied, eyes still on the box. "But every time I saw your name somewhere, I cut it out and kept it like a habit. Then I told myself you didn't need me, that you'd grown too far beyond my reach. I was afraid you'd succeeded without me in the picture." I closed the lid gently. "And you stayed silent all these years just because of pride." The accusation hung heavy, a truth we both felt, a chasm we'd both built. She nodded, tears slipping down onto her hands. "I was wrong. You don't have to forgive me now. I just want you to know I've been watching every step you took, even if I stayed silent for too long." I didn't answer. "You kept these, but never once called," I said, my voice low but firm, each word a shard of broken trust. "Why now?" "Because I saw you on the news," she admitted, her voice breaking, tears streaming freely. "And I realized I'd lost you long before you bought this house. I failed you, Clara, and I can't undo that." I just stepped aside, holding the door open. "Come in, there's coffee." As she stepped inside, I didn't see the confident figure I'd known. She was no longer the woman who once sat at the head of every reunion table, controlling the room with a glance. Now she was just a mother who had missed her chance to love at the right time, trying to piece together a fractured memory. Her brokenness was a mirror to my own, a chance for something new. 3 hours later, just as the sun fully set, the gate opened again. Grace stepped out first, no makeup, no heels. She wore an oversized blouse and jeans, holding a thick book and an iced tea. "You still like reading on the balcony?" she asked, trying to smile. "Lucas said I should bring tea." Lucas followed behind, arms full with a file folder and his laptop. He looked sheepish, almost awkward, seeing me standing between our mother and older sister, but no one turned away. "We're not here to apologize," Grace said softly, but clearly, "because we know one afternoon can't fix 10 years of neglect." Her honesty was a crack in the wall we'd built between us, a raw admission that pierced the silence. "I've enrolled in an online business management course," Lucas added. "Not to brag, just to start over. If you're willing, I'd like your guidance." I stood still, staring at the two people who used to be the symbols of the favoritism I never had. Now they stood before me with real eyes and real words. "Things don't change overnight," I said slowly. "But at least today we're finally listening to each other." My words were a bridge, fragile but possible, a tentative step toward healing. Grace nodded. "I've taken a 3-month leave from the law firm. I plan to fly out to Hong Kong to visit you if that's okay." Her offer was a shock, a gesture I hadn't expected, a spark of hope in a long, dark night. I was surprised. "Not to tell you what to do," she quickly added, "just because you're my sister, and I don't want to look back one day and realize I missed my chance." I pulled out a chair. "Sit down. Your tea's going cold." "Clara, I was wrong. Lucas said suddenly, his voice rough, eyes glistening with unshed tears. I let Mom and Elise decide who you were, and I never questioned it. I was a coward. Can we start over? I said, my voice steady but soft, a challenge wrapped in hope. No more games, Lucas. No more shadows. I mean it, he said, his voice breaking. You're my sister, and I want to know you, not the version they told me you were. We sat there, the four of us, beneath a sunset casting deep orange light over the sea. People who had once lost each other now speaking, not with blame, but with a real desire to reconnect. Inside me, something shifted. Not quite forgiveness, but the beginning of acceptance, and sometimes that's more powerful than any form of revenge. This was no fairy tale ending, but it was a start, a raw, real one, fragile but fierce. My flight to Hong Kong was scheduled for early Monday morning, and I had nearly everything ready: documents for the Asian Executive Board meeting, the keys to a high-rise apartment overlooking Victoria Harbor, and a suitcase filled with hope and caution. But on Sunday afternoon, while I was sorting papers in my old office, Mom appeared at the door again, her face thoughtful, hands empty. Do you have a moment? She asked, her voice soft like the last streak of sunlight. I nodded. Come in. She sat down, watching me close my laptop. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but if you'll allow it, I'd like to start over from the beginning on your terms. Her vulnerability was new, a crack in her once penetrable armor, a plea I hadn't expected. I looked up at her, my heart unexpectedly softening. Then listen carefully, I said slowly. No more favoritism, no more dinners where I'm just background. If you truly want to rebuild this relationship, it starts with listening and respect. My voice was firm, a line drawn in the sand, a boundary carved in stone. She nodded. No excuses, no defense. I understand, and I'll try to learn that. That evening, Grace came by too, this time alone. She brought a folded map marked with tourist spots around Hong Kong. Not to control you, she said with a sheepish smile. You once said you wanted to contribute if I could. Her gesture was a peace offering, fragile but sincere, a thread to mend our broken bond. I looked at her, remembering all those years lost in the shadow of the perfect big sister. But now Grace's eyes didn't challenge, they invited patiently and genuinely. You can visit, I said, as long as you come as a sister, not a supervisor. She laughed. A real sister. Is that okay? I nodded. This was no instant fix, but it was a step toward something real, a fragile hope I dared to hold. That night, the whole family sat down for a simple meal at the Cape Cod estate. For the first time in years, no one fought to be heard. Mom let Lucas speak, who shared an idea for a startup, this time backed by proper market research. I'm not asking you to fund it, just so you know. He raised his hand, half joking. But if you have time, could you look at the draft? I pulled out my iPad. Send me the proposal. If you're serious, I'll give you a serious response. He smiled, visibly relieved. His humility was new, a sign he was finally seeing me, a brother stepping out of the spotlight. When dinner ended, I stepped out onto the balcony with a glass of water. Lights from distant houses reflected on the sea, reminding me that the world was waiting. Mom joined me. Are you really okay with moving that far? I turned to her. I'm okay because this time I'm leaving as someone who was chosen, not someone who was left behind. My words were a declaration, a truth I'd fought to claim, a victory etched in my soul. She was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "And this house?" I smiled gently. I'll rent it out seasonally, but if the whole family truly tries, I'm open to reserving summer each year for a reunion. She looked surprised. Really? She laughed, tears glimmering. Then I guess I'll have to relearn how to bake from scratch. I looked back at the house. The one that used to make me feel small and out of place, now lit up with warm light and real laughter. It was no longer a prison. It was a canvas for new memories, a testament to my strength. The next morning, as the taxi drove me down the winding road away from the estate, I saw Grace and Lucas waving from the port, and Mom holding up a small sign that read, "Good luck, Clara." I smiled, my eyes misty. Not from sadness this time. Their gesture was small, but it was a start. A flicker of hope in a long, dark night. The plane took off from Massachusetts, carrying me into a new chapter. But this time, I wasn't leaving to escape the past. I was leaving to live on my own terms and to open the door for those who truly wanted to walk through it. The morning sky in Hong Kong was nothing like Massachusetts. No soft ocean breeze, no scent of pine trees. Instead, it breathed urgency, an energy that pulsed through a city that never stopped, where every light reflected ambition. I stood at the window of my new apartment, a warm cup of tea in hand, looking out over the shimmering water of Victoria Harbor. This wasn't running away. This was a decision, a closing chapter, and the start of one where I held the pen. For years, I believed success was the only way to answer dismissal, that if I climbed high enough, stood far enough, they would have to look up and regret. But once I had it all, an international title, a multi-million-dollar apartment, my name on finance magazine covers, I realized revenge only kept me stuck in the past they'd built. The truth was, I didn't need them to see I'd made it. I needed me to believe I was worth it. And I did fiercely, unapologetically, a warrior who'd claimed her crown. An email from Lucas arrived around noon. Subject: Week 1 Challenge. He attached a new business proposal with a short note. This time, I wrote it not to prove anything, but because I truly want to learn. Thanks for giving me the chance. I smiled, typed a few edits, and sent it back with one line. It's never too late to begin again, if you're sincere. That afternoon, Grace called from Chicago, where she was attending a short leadership course. I'll be in Hong Kong next month, she said, excited. Not to teach you anything, but to learn how to be a better sister. Her voice was warm, a promise of change I cautiously believed, a bridge I dared to cross. After I hung up, another message came through. Mom, a photo. The keepsake box now placed neatly on the family altar beside a new family portrait. Beneath the frame, the handwritten note read, Family is where you don't have to be perfect to be loved. I didn't cry, but my eyes burned. All through childhood, I had longed for praise from Mom, recognition from Dad, a pat on the back from my brother, or a simple check-in from my sister. But growing up taught me this. Family isn't just where you were born. It's where you're heard, respected, and allowed to be yourself, whether for the first or the second time. This was no perfect reunion, but it was a beginning, a fragile, hopeful one, a seed planted in scorched earth. True success isn't standing on a peak watching others bow. It's standing firm in life's storm without losing yourself to please anyone else. I could forgive, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And I opened the door again, not out of weakness, but because I was strong enough to set clear conditions. If anyone wants to walk this path with me, they must do so with honesty. No old hierarchies, no inherited rules. As I stepped out of the shuttle at the Kaizen headquarters, a young reporter suddenly rushed up, recorder in hand. Miss Clara, may I ask, what's your greatest success? I paused, looked at her, realizing I don't have to beat anyone, as long as I don't lose myself. My answer was a truth I'd fought for, a beacon for others, a clarion call for authenticity. She blinked, then laughed. That's tomorrow's headline. I just shrugged and walked into the glass tower, its surface reflecting the deep blue sky above. This was my legacy, written in courage, a story that would echo beyond these walls. Clara's story is proof that true worth doesn't come from others' approval. It comes from daring to live authentically. Success isn't for revenge. It's for healing and reclaiming your place in this world. Family, if it wants to be called family, must learn to change, to respect, and to walk beside you, not just when you're weak, but especially when you're strong. And sometimes, learning to stand on your own is how you create a true home. Her journey is a battle cry for anyone who's ever been overlooked, a torch to light the way. What do you think about Clara's journey and how her family changed? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, powerful stories about life, family, and growth. Her story is yours too. Let it inspire you to claim your truth, to rise unapologetically. Clara's path showed me that betrayal by those we love cuts deep, but reclaiming our worth heals deeper. Many know the sting of being unseen, yet carry on with quiet strength. Your struggles, like hers, are real and deserve to be heard. If you've ever felt overlooked or fought to be valued, you're not alone. Share your story below or with someone you trust. Your voice can inspire others to rise. Let's build a space where empathy lifts us all, courage and... What's your journey? Speak it. We're listening. Clara's fight to be seen resonates with anyone who's felt invisible in their own story. Her courage mirrors the quiet battles we all face, the wounds we carry from being unheard. I understand the ache of striving for love that overlooks you and the strength it takes to rise. You're not alone in this. Your struggles echo hers. Share your journey below, your triumphs, your pain, your truth. Every story matters, every voice can heal. Let's create a community where empathy binds us, where we lift each other up. What's your story? Tell it, and let's grow stronger, together.